Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, we are going to be continuing our AFL 2022 3-game match reviews. Now in this video, we're going to be reviewing the final 3 games of round 21 of the 2022 AFL season. Can you believe we're at the end of round 21 already? I cannot believe it. This season's gone so quickly, and there's 3 more massive games in front of us here now. Sydney and Brisbane are some of the main teams in this video, as they are contending for the top 4. Carlton are contending for the top 8. The other teams all currently sit in the bottom 4. But anyway, the games we're going to be reviewing are North Melbourne vs Sydney, Brisbane vs Carlton, and West Coast vs Adelaide, all of Sunday's footy action. North Melbourne vs Sydney was the first at Marvel Stadium. Alright, so the first game of Sunday was North Melbourne vs Sydney, and North Melbourne 13-10-88, lose to Sydney 18-18, 126. Sydney, a little bit inaccurate with the 18-18, but again, still did a pretty good job to win comfortably by 38 points. But I think a fair few people, including me, had them in to win bigger, but North Melbourne did a good job to stop the bleeding, all led by a brilliant and very valid Nick Larkey. He got 7 goals for North Melbourne, 31 disposals for Jai Simpkin, as well as Stevenson. And then Simpkin with the 120 fantasy and 9 tackles for Luke Parker. But we're going to go back and have a look here at the scoreline. And it was a very even first quarter. Sydney did have the better first quarter. And then the second quarter, North Melbourne tried to come back. But again, Sydney, they just kicked 1, 2, 3 goals late to go ahead and have a pretty comfortable lead at half-time. Then the third quarter is where the work and the damage is dealt. They get themselves out to about a 50-point lead. And then in the last quarter, they're touching on 60 points there. But then North Melbourne just managed to kick the last few goals of the game to bring it back to 38 at a point where it's not too bad for them. They didn't... Sydney didn't gain a lot of percentage out of this game, which North Melbourne would be pretty happy with, that they didn't give too much up. But Jai Simpkin, 120 fantasy, 115 for Luke Parker, 114 for Stevenson, 111 for Davies Uniacke, 105 for Hickey, 101 for Heaney. Goals behind, 7 goals straight for Larkey. That is a very good performance. And North Melbourne are quite built around this guy, as well as 2 goals for Zerha and McDonald, 3 for Papley, 3 for Warner, 4 goals for Franklin. But yeah, 7 goals. Again, I think that's what really allowed North Melbourne to score. Larkey is their scoring avenue. If they don't have Larkey, yes, Zerha can still be there, but it's a bit hard when it's all piled on Zerha. So Larkey's a real key scoring avenue for North Melbourne. So if he's not there, they tend to play pretty poorly. He's a big lift in the side, is Nick Larkey. Buddy Franklin, 4 goals. He's been speculated on a trade to Brisbane, maybe. Gonna have to wait and see how that one plays out. Warner and Papley, just both brilliant players. McDonald is emerging. Zerha's brilliant. And Heaney and Reid have been around for a little while. So now Simpkin and Stevenson with the 31 disposals, 30 for Davies Uniacke, 29 for Parker, 27 for Anderson. Now to the marks we go, 8 for Stevenson, 8 for Taylor and Walker, 7 for Hall, Hayward and Papley. Now to the tackles we go, 9 for Parker, by far the most on anybody else on the ground, 6 for Simpkin, Hayward, McDonald, Rowbottom and Goulden. Now to the hit-outs, 38 for Hickey, 19 for Goldstein, 12 for Coleman Jones, 7 for Reid. Now to team stats we go, where the Swans went inside 50 more times than North Melbourne, plus 11. And then anything else at the moment, 1 clearances around the stoppage, 1 hit-outs, more marks inside 50. Led for most of the game, and we're deserving winners. They're always up by a comfortable margin. But again, North Melbourne weren't too bad. Sydney did apply more pressure. North Melbourne weren't too bad. However, this wasn't their worst game they've played all year, but it wasn't their most prettiest either. They still go down by 38 points. Another really good performance by the Sydney Swans. Now up to the Gabba we go for the 3:20 start game up at the Gabba, 3:20 Channel 7 Sunday afternoon game between Brisbane and Carlton. This one was in Brisbane, 17-12, 114. Easily get over the Blues, 12-9, 81. They win by 33. But again, not their best game, not their most prettiest, and they could have been in this game for, at stages, they could have won this game by 100+ points, but also at stages, they could have won this game by, they probably should have been looking at about a 50 or so point win. So for it to be 33, I think the Blues would be pretty happy with that. And again, not Brisbane's best performance. They were really good in stages, but again, let the game slip in that last quarter. That they were an inaccurate side as well for the first quarter. 4-6 to 0-1 is what they had at quarter time. And then in the second quarter, they just, again, started to explode. And then in the third quarter was where the damage was done, though. That's where they started. That's where they got their game-high margin of 58 points, was up in that third quarter. And look, Carlton were cooked. They were absolutely cooked everywhere. And they looked like they were going to get absolutely destroyed by, 70, 80 points. But no, Carlton actually, really tried in the last quarter. And they didn't give up. It was going to be tough to win, but they almost came back to a point where they almost could have snatched victory. But again, it was just too little too late. But an 8-goal last quarter to 4 was brilliant by Carlton, showing signs that they would play. But it was the first 3 quarters that really let them down in this one. 32 disposal for Lachie Neale, 4 goals for Zach Bailey, and still not going to work for me. And McStay was the other person to get 4 goals, 117 fantasy for Lachie Neale, 7 tackles for Paddy Cripps. Now to the player stats we go. AFL fantasy, 117 for Neale, 108 for Bailey, 105 for McInerney and McCluggage, 101 for Doherty. 4 goals for Bailey and McStay, 2 for Fisher, 2 for Cameron, 2 for Kerno, 2 for Motlop. Disposals now. 32 for Neale, 28 for McCluggage and Doherty, 27 for Walsh, 24 for Matheson, Cripps and Sard. Marks, 10 for McGovern, 9 for Wiedering, 8 for Gardner. Tackles now, 7 for Cripps, 6 for Walsh, 5 for Cameron and Shearer. Hit outs, 37 for McInerney, 22 for DeConing, 6 for Young, Silvani, McStay, Hipwood and Mackay. Yep. But it was like, the Lions know the Gabba very well, so no surprise they got a pretty comfortable win up there. And Carlton, they're not locked into finals just yet either. And the Lions did destroy them in inside 50s. They went inside 50 23 more times than Carlton. That resulting in their big score. What else? Smashed them at centre clearances. Absolutely destroyed Carlton. Carlton got 8 centre clearances for the game. That is a disappointing number. 8 centre clearances for the game for 4 quarters, averaging 2 a quarter. That is poor. And by a side that wants to make the top 8, that is poor. They do have a pretty stacked midfield room, and they still had Cripps, Chera, Walsh. They still had some of their main players in there, so disappointing. 24 for Brisbane. We know they've got an absolute packed midfield, and they've got plenty of players at VFL as well that can fit into that midfield. Such a great team at Brisbane. They smashed Carlton in marks by 21. They led for pretty much the whole game. Were very deserving winners in the end. Last quarter, missed out on percentage, but other than that, really good all-round performance. They played the Gabba so well. And, really good win by the Lions. Comfortable, convincing. But that last quarter wasn't their best. But Carlton, they're not locked in final just yet. Tough run home to come for them. And they are in real danger of maybe even missing out on finals and or slipping down to 8th or 9th. Yeah, they're in danger, Carlton. So now to the final game of the rounds. We go to Optus Stadium. Josh Kennedy, a ripping player. Still says listen live. I'm getting onto this one really quickly, as I normally do. But Josh Kennedy, it was his final game for West Coast, and he put up a really good effort, even though his side couldn't get the job done. West Coast 13-8, 86. Adelaide 16-6, 102. Adelaide backed up their good work, just like what they did against Carlton last week. They brought pressure. They were disappointing at times, but other than that, they were really good. And the Eagles, they never gave up in this one, though. And the first quarter was a really interesting one. Adelaide did lead for majority, but the Eagles came back with 2 late goals. Then the Eagles get a better second quarter. And then the third quarter is where the party starts to start for the Adelaide Crows. They kick out, they kick ahead up by a couple of goals. The Eagles, though, they come charging back into the last quarter, and they come to within a couple of kicks, pretty much like 3 or 4 times in this quarter. And then the Adelaide Crows, they hold their nerve. A couple of big moments, and Darcy Fogarty really owned them. Himmelberg was really crucial in the last quarter as well, was fantastic. Milestones all round, Josh Kennedy, his final game for West Coast, a legend, and he will be remembered. Rory Laird, 200 games, still got some fantastic footy ahead of him. And Willie Rioli, I believe, was his 50th game in this one. He didn't really have the spotlight on him because the other 2 games The other two players, were a lot bigger. And Laird and Kennedy had very big impacts. Rory Laird, 36 disposals, 127 fantasy, and 2 goals, both in the first quarter. Kennedy kicked 8 goals in his farewell and almost was the match winner for West Coast, but he kicked 8 of their 13 in the end. Berry, 12 tackles. We know him as a tackling machine. He does it week in, week out. Sam Berry, you know what to expect from this young kid who will just get better as he keeps on growing. But yeah, 125 fantasy for Laird, 120 for Kennedy. The two best players on the ground were these two. 106 for Hearn, 96 for Dawson. Now, where else is the other milestone man? We're looking for him. 79 for Fogarty while we're at it. Willie Rioli, 66. He was kept goalless. He got 13 disposals. But let's go and have a look at the other milestone men. So 35 disposals for Laird, 15 for Kennedy. 0 marks for Laird, 8 for Kennedy. 5 tackles for Laird, 1 for Kennedy. And then 0 hit-outs for both. Now to the goals and behinds. 8 goals, 2 for Kennedy. He could have easily walked away with 10. But unfortunately enough, he doesn't. But he's still going to be remembered. An 8-goal farewell. Fantastic for Josh Kennedy. 3 goals for Fogarty, McAdam. 2 for Darling, Cripps, and McHenry as well as Laird. Now the disposals. 35 for Laird, 27 for Dawson, 25 for Hearn, 24 for Kelly, Jones, Gaff. Now to the marks. 10 for Barras, 8 for Kennedy, 8 for McAdam. Tackles, 11 for Berry. I said 12. Not sure whether it's 12 or 11. 9 for Red and 8 for Rioli and O'Neill. Now the hit-outs we go. 38 for O'Brien, 32 for Natanui, 16 for Williams, 3 for Walker, 1 for Himmelberg. Here we are in team stats. It was a ripping game of footy. The Eagles had more of the footy than the Adelaide Crows. The Crows went inside 52 more times than West Coast. What else have we got here? What else? Stoppages, clearances were relatively even. Marks was West Coast 93 to 64. Marks inside 50 were locked at 12. Contested marks +3 for the Adelaide Crows. The Adelaide Crows were ahead for most of the game. You can't say we're deserving winners. They were the better side, though. But it was a very interesting contest. It was a very good game. The Eagles did bring more pressure, and the Eagles did have the game on their terms. I think it was a 50-50 split for teams when they had the game on their terms, but it was a ripping game, to say the least. Both these teams were looking for a win. It was going to be really good. Sunday Arvo at Optus Stadium. Josh Kennedy's farewell game, Rory Laird's 200th game, Willie Rioli's 50th game, and yeah, Josh Kennedy, 8 goals, was the centre stage. Rory Laird had a stack to do with the game as well. Fogarty keeps on rising as well, but it was a ripping game all round, and the Adelaide Crows walk out 16-point winners to finish off a action-packed round 21. So yes, an action-packed round 21. It most certainly was in the AFL. Collingwood get over Melbourne by 7. The Hawks over the Suns by 7. The Giants over the Bombers by 27. The Doggies over the Dockers. The Dockers over the Doggies by 17. The Cats over the Saints by 45. The Tigers over the Power by 38. The Swans over the Roos by 38. The Lions over the Blues by 33. And the Eagles lost to the Crows by 16, or should I say the Crows over the Eagles by 16. Right now, round 22, couple of spotlighted games. We're not going to be going through it because there's a couple of other things that I want to do in this round, in this 3-game match reviews. But St Kilda versus Brisbane is on Friday night. Really big game. Bulldogs versus the Giants is the first game on the Saturday. It's a must-win for the Doggies if they want to keep their slim finals hopes alive. The Crows take on North Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval before the Suns clash with the Cats. Big game there. Could be the unlikely thriller. Who knows? The Demons take on the Blues on the Saturday night. The first of 2 Saturday nighters. Second Saturday night game is the derby between the Dockers and the Eagles. The Tigers take on the Hawks. Big game. I think the Hawks, big game to take into round 23. They're going to need the confidence. And the Tigers, big game because they want to try and jump skip Carlton. Sydney versus Collingwood, biggest game of the round for me. I think, is it the SCG? I think this one can go either way. I think it's going to be a really cracking game of footy. Essendon versus Port Adelaide. should be a good game to end off the round as well. So we're going to go ahead and have a little look at the ladder before we go ahead and have a look at some stats. Because, yes, we're going to go back and have a little look at the stats. But the Cats did a game clear on top of the table. Collingwood a game clear in second. So if they win versus Sydney next week, that's going to throw a real spanner into the already spanning works. I know. It's going to be really interesting. Imagine if Collingwood and Geelong clashed in round 23. Boy, you'd love to see it. But unfortunately enough, that will not be happening. And then Melbourne sit in third, equal with Sydney and Brisbane on 56 points. Just percentage, which there's only 4% between Melbourne and Brisbane. There's only 1% between Melbourne and Sydney. So that's really big as well. Fremantle are in sixth on 54 points. That draw could either harm or hurt help their top four chances. It looks like it'll probably end up harming, however, but who knows? Carlton are in seventh, not yet in finals on 48 points, sitting very nervously. Richmond half a game behind them on 46 points. The Saints half a game behind the Tigers on 44. The Dogs, if they do everything right against the Giants and the Hawks, the Blues lose every game, they can still get into the top 8 as well. So really big stuff going on there. And then here is down the lower end of the ladder. So let's go ahead and check out some stats. Alright, so something that we may as well just go ahead, run over quickly is some player and team stats. Well, if we have time for team stats. But Charlie Curnow is comfortably on top of the Coleman medal race with 61 goals. We'll go ahead, dive into the full table a little bit after. Oliver is on top with disposals. Marks is Sicily. Score involvements is Petrarca. Brayshaw is on top fantasy. Berry is on top for tackles, along with Rory Laird in second. Contested possessions is Oliver. We don't need to go through the speed stuff. Full table of the Coleman medal. Charlie Curnow, 61, 56 for Cameron, 54 for Hawkins, 49 for Wright. You'd be thinking now it really comes down to these two, or even the top three, Curnow, Cameron and Hawkins, as to who can take it out. I feel like Curnow does have it in the bag. However, now we can go ahead and go. Can I go for the average? Yes, I can. And then again, that is Charlie Curnow with 3 goals, 1, 2 goals, 9 for Lynch, 2 goals, 8 for Cameron, 2 goals, 7 for Hawkins and Walker. But again, back to the totals. So Charlie Curnow, I feel like he will win it. But you guys can let me know who's going to win the Coleman medal this year. And we may as well go and have a little look at some team stats. Alright, team stats now. And Carlton have got the most footy. The Bombers, most disposal efficiency, surprisingly. The tackles is the Adelaide Crows. And then the marks is St Kilda. Scoring 209 goals for Brisbane. We do know they can score very heavily. 258 behinds for Geelong. Efficiency inside 50 for Sydney is 50. And tackles inside 50 for Sydney is 237. And then the speed. Don't really need to go over that. But yes, here we go. That is how stats are shaping up. But anyway, it was a massive round, round 21. Round 22 is going to be another exciting round where we can go through more footy all over again. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you guys never miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Bye everyone. Flaming Footy out.